name is Samantha Segura. I am an English major with a minor in special education and a concentration in rhetoric, composition, and literature. And I'm graduating in 2 days. Yay. So my project's called Community in Vergüenza, an examination of reproductive justice organizations in the Rio Grande Valley. And my project aims to find out how reproductive justice in the Rio Grande Valley engage the community despite the deprivation we face due to poverty, immigration laws, etc., and the stigma around talking about reproductive health. So reproductive justice means to me is such a broad topic. It's not just about having reproductive health access. It's also tied in directly with immigration laws, like I said, and environmental health as well. And reproductive justice encompasses all communities. A lot of people will see reproductive justice or reproductive health and think oh, that's a woman's issue, when it's not at all. There's a lot of components to it as well. And it's just making sure that everybody has the choices they want to make and the knowledge to make those decisions. I honestly can't speak about the other communities because I've lived in the Rio Grande Valley my whole life. My research is about the Rio Grande Valley. But I also think it's interesting to see how these reproductive justice organizations engage the community despite all that deprivation and all that stigma, because for example, down here, we have that checkpoint in Falfurrias. So I think that's an also unique thing, but I'm not sure if they have that. I'm sure they have that in El Paso, a checkpoint over there, but I'm not 100% about that. And that's why I also wanted to do my research about that, because it's about my community, in my community, stuff like that, as well as the fact that in California, I'm sure that there's a lot of communities that face similar disadvantages like we do. Perhaps those areas can use my research and be oh, I never thought about going to a vocational school to go tell them about reproductive health. I've always went to colleges to talk about reproductive health. Let me go to vocational schools where they don't even have access to the student health center that we have here at UTRGV. So I think that was very important for me to include. So I was the Intersectional Feminist Student Organization Secretary at UTRGV. My first year at UTRGV, which was last year, I entered as a junior. And getting lost. Okay, so I became the Intersectional Feminist Student Organization Secretary, and I became really enthralled in reproductive health and concepts that fall under intersectional feminism, which is how your intersecting identities make you treated differently in society and stuff like that. You face different disadvantages and barriers because of that intersectional identity. So it was really amazing to participate in that organization, especially as an officer. It was a great honor. And then last semester, I was vice president of the Intersectional Feminist Student Organization. And after my year of being the secretary, because I was the secretary for half of the fall semester and the complete of the spring, I knew that I wanted to do research about reproductive health. So I was okay, I've seen this poster around campus about the Engaged Scholar and Artist Award. Let me do it my senior year first semester, so that way I can have more experience writing, because I'm an English major, and that way I can really fulfill this project the way I want it to be fulfilled. I felt that it affected my research in a good way, honestly. I know ESAA really emphasizes oh, you guys should start as quick as possible, as a freshman, ask questions and stuff. That way you can really have the time. And honestly, I was able to do my research because I'm very goal orientated, and I had my my schedule of like, okay, this week I need to get this done. Next week I need to get this done. And I do see how that could be very difficult to somebody, especially because it's senior year, and we both know classes are harder senior year. But I really liked starting as a junior at UTRGV because I did my first 2 years. I got my associates at STC when I graduated high school at the same time. I'm a dual enrollment kid, but yeah, I felt prepared in a way. But I really did need that junior year to be like, oh, this is UTRGV. Let me see how things are done. I think it's just passion. There's an excerpt from Patricia Hill. They wrote Black Feminist Thought. I was reading it and it talks about how like, just because you have a degree doesn't mean you're more educated than others, and that your level of education isn't a direct reference to your intellectual building blocks and stuff like that. And she talks about how like her friends that do not have a degree are not less than her just because they don't have a degree. And I really like that, and I really like believe in that as well. Just because you have a certain level of education doesn't mean you can't do something. The biggest building block is passion. And as long as you have passion, that's all you need. Because you're gonna be like, oh, this is what I wanna do for my research. I can do anything because I have this like immense amount of passion to do it. So I'm an English major, but I'm going to go to my master's in sociology because of this research. Like, it really facilitated my knowledge because my mentor, Dr. Amy Bostic, is a sociology professor at UTRGV. Shout out Dr. Amy Bostic, amazing mentor, really facilitated my knowledge and my growth as a student. And without her mentorship, I wouldn't be the student I am today. But this research has helped me like gain knowledge in sociology because I've never taken a sociology class, and now I've read about a lot of readings. I can't really name an estimate, but I've read a lot of readings on sociology and the research behind my like inquiry. I honestly think it is really easy because of the support that I've gained from Dr. Bostic as well as Dr. Restifo, the graduate coordinator for sociology. He's been very helpful and has met with me, and we've talked about like, oh, okay, like this is the plan of like sociology, and these are the careers you can get. And I love the careers in sociology because there's like program coordinator for sociology, and I could work for a nonprofit with a sociology master's, which I could not necessarily do with my English degree. I could technically do it, but it would be harder to get my foot in that door with an English degree than with the master's in sociology. It has been amazing. I love presenting my research. I get a bit more nervous during like online events. I did an online conference for my research where I had like people have the opportunity to join through Zoom and hear about a PowerPoint about my research. So it's a bit different than my poster, because in my poster I just talk about my research, but then in my presentation I talked about like the timeline I did with my research and how every month I did X, Y, and Z, and then as well as how ESAA played into my research as well. And that one was a lot more nerve-wracking for me because you can't really see people's like expressions, and you're just like, what if everyone hates me right now? But with like conferences, it's so fun. Like when I went to Austin, I talked about it in my interview with the writer. Like somebody from the Rio Grande Valley came up to me and was like, hey, I love your research. It's so cool to see another RGV person here like presenting their research. And they're in Austin, a UT Austin student that is from the Rio Grande Valley. And I was like, no problem. Like, it's amazing to be able to be like, yeah, this is research about my community that I did in my community and things like that, because like other people feel inspired to do that, and it feels great to give them the knowledge as well. Like maybe they didn't know that they could get these type of services from these different organizations. I interviewed 6 different organizations in the Rio Grande Valley, and I interviewed 9 people from at least one of each organization. Sometimes I got 2, and it was amazing to be like, yeah, like look at all this information I found. Like this is the percentage of how many people think in person versus online engages the most people. I think my like footsteps when I didn't even know it into presenting was the fact that I was the officer for the Intersectional Feminist Student Organization at UTRGV, because that way I was able to talk to people and I was able to present information. I was able to be like, okay, like we're an organization and we need to do X, Y, and Z this month at like the Zoom meetings. Or like in the text messages, and be like, okay, like we need to do X, Y, and Z. So I felt like that gave me like the ability to do it, as well as like during tablings and be like, hey, like this is what we're doing this month. Would you like to join us in our efforts to give pads on campus and stuff like that? A lot of people feel like they can't come up to tablings because they're gonna be like, oh, everyone's gonna see me come to this table and then they're gonna judge me. I think the best method is saying the free stuff you have. Maybe you have like candy. And this also relates to my own life, because when I was at STC, I learned about sex ed for the first time because of a table there that was like free candy, and we were like, might as well. So then we go up to the table, and then they were like, also here's some pamphlets if you want. Then we picked some up, and then we were like, wow, like we never learned this anywhere else, and they got us by free candy. So whenever I do tablings, I'm like, we have this for free candy. And then people are like, or like free pizza will get everybody. And then like maybe that gives them an excuse to go up, because they're like, well, everyone's already getting free pizza there. They're gonna think I'm just like at the table to get some free pizza. But then they're like, do you know where I can go get so-and-so? Maybe they need like pads and they're too like ashamed to say it. And they're like, hey, do you know where I can go get some pads? And we help them out, of course. But that was my time at IFSO. So like if they don't have a car, for example, like they don't have the time to get in the car, or they don't have a car, they can easily like do Zoom conferences with these organizations, or just help out in their community, whether by sharing a post on your Instagram story, for example, or your Facebook. And a lot of people don't know that like just by simply sharing about these organizations, you're helping out the community a lot, because you yourself are destigmatizing it, and you're also giving information to others, like your followers, who may not know about that information. And then they will find a safe space with you and maybe like, hey, do you know where I can go get some pads? Or do you know where I can go get a pap smear? Or do you know where I can go get tested for STDs? And then you'll probably know, because you're following all of these organizations in the Rio Grande Valley, and you kind of figure out which one's which. I think the influence on having a friend there, or just even like a cousin, is like tremendous, because you're like, I'm not alone. Or even if you're going to class and you're with your friend, and then somebody's saying that they have free pizza, and they're talking about STDs or pap smears or pads and stuff like that, you're gonna feel so much more safer because your friend's next to you and you're not alone. So as long as like you just not even have a role model, as long as like you have somebody that's accepting of like information, does a lot of. Okay, it's amazing because then like somebody who may not have known about like resources will know about them now just because like I'm doing research about it and they see my poster when they go to the Engaged Scholar Symposium, or they see my poster at the Capital of Texas Undergraduate Research Conference, or they hear about it at the UTRGV Writer. I also want to do a newspaper article about my research because I believe that it's not only academics that should know about this information, and it should be like everybody, like regardless if they want to read an academic article or the newspaper article. And when I go get my master's, I'm going to be doing both. I'm going to be writing a newspaper article, and then for my thesis, I will be writing an academic article. Have passion for what you do. I always say that, but it's the biggest thing you can do. If you're really passionate about a certain topic, you should go ahead and do it, because at the end of the day, that's what's gonna keep you going. That's gonna keep you I need to do this and this and this, not because I have to, but because I really want to share this information, because I know this information, but does the person across the classroom know this information? And that's also the great thing, with the Engaged Scholar and Artist Award, I was able to have doors opened in a way. I was able to have my mentor, who I really admire and I hold her to high regard. And without the ESAA, I would have never been partnered with my mentor. I would have been flying, not just doing my research. You get me? So I also think it's really important to have somebody that you confide in and trust to be your mentor, and they'll help you out. I think you should do so-and-so because so-and-so, and then being you're right. I didn't see it that way before. Or even if it's oh, I think you should do so-and-so because so-and-so, and then I'll be oh, well, what about this because so-and-so? Just having that facilitating conversation and having that literacy sponsorship is amazing, because I would honestly not be at the place I am with my research if it had not been for Dr. Bostic. I think honestly, if somebody's on the fence of a topic, they will more likely just need more information about it. And you can give them that information and you can be well, a lot of people live in poverty and cannot even afford pads, so therefore pads should be free, or at least more easily accessible. Or for example, STD testing is a very stigmatized topic, therefore we shouldn't stigmatize getting tested for STDs to make it more widespread, to get more people to get tested. And then a lot of people will be oh, you're right. That is really good information, and I hadn't thought about that topic until you brought it up in that way. But I feel some people that are honestly dead set on their opinions, you cannot change their mind at the end of the day. So the conference process started with an abstract of my research, and then I submitted that in, and then I think it was through Submittable. So I submit the abstract to Submittable. It was 250 words, I believe. I think it was 300 max, but I could be wrong. And then we got emails updating us about the calendar, about what time we would attend the conference and stuff like that. And I'm an early bird, so I go early to everything, like this interview, for example. So I headed to the conference early, I parked, and then I walked to my poster, and my boyfriend came with me as well as my mom, and then we checked in, and it was easy for guests to check in as well. You just had to put in your email, and they gave me my little name card and stuff, and they gave me some push pins, and then they gave me the number of which area was mine to put my poster in. Then I went ahead and I push pinned it, and then what happened after that? Oh, and then the judges came out to judge our poster, and it was really great. I loved the judges. They were so nice, and they gave me so much information and insight of what I could do to further my project. as well as like being really inspiring. Like I remember one judge told me that I'm really smart and that I can keep going, and I got it like in the bag basically. Like I can keep doing this, and like my research is valuable, and that's so nice to hear because it's like positive reinforcement, and like, oh, you could do so and so for your thesis since you're going to be continuing on, and it was just really nice. So it was like amazing because I was like talking to the judges at the symposium, and then in the corner of my eye there's my boyfriend and my mom just talking, and it was like, oh, like two people that I value so much are right there supporting me while I'm talking to this judge about my research. And without like your friends and your family and your loved ones, nothing would be possible. Like this ring that I'm wearing right here is my quinceañera ring that my madrina got me, and she passed away. And even in my research poster, I put in my acknowledgements, I acknowledge my madrina, Chala, because she gives me the strength to keep doing this. And I always wear this ring, especially when I go to conferences or like I go to interviews like this, because it's like she's right here with me. And even like when I felt so like I couldn't keep doing the research, like I was like, oh, I'm so tired, like school is so hard and I have all these assignments and I'm having a bad week this week, I'm tired. At the end of the day, I found the strength like in this ring, in my madrina Chala, and the passion and the ability to inspire others with this research. That you're there yet. You never think that you're gonna be at that level until you do it. Like honestly, anybody's voices should be heard and can be heard. And like at the Zoom conference I held about my research, the last slide says like, do your own research. Your voice needs to be heard, because like our voices all need to be heard, whether you're doing research, whether you're just writing a story, you're doing art, anything. Like even if you're just telling a story about your day with your grandma or something like that, these are very unique stories, as well as the fact that a lot of our voices have not been heard. You get me? And it's just like I push everybody to, whether you think you're ready or you're not quite there yet, to go ahead and get started with the process. Go ahead and ask your professor, or maybe you don't go to college, and ask UTRGV and be like, hey, I don't necessarily go to college, but I'm interested in learning more about this. Like, can you guys work with me maybe? And get that information that way. Or online, honestly, is such a great platform. Maybe you could write a story at the library and publish it somewhere, maybe at the Monitor, even if you don't go to college. You could do anything you put your mind to, even if you don't think you can, is like my biggest advice, like words of wisdom. Because oftentimes I felt like, can I really do this? Like, is this really possible to do in this time frame? Or can I really take 5 classes in one semester with one class giving me like 6 assignments a week? But the thing is, you can do it as long as you really, really, really want it. Even if you think you're gonna fail the test, you got it in the bag.